All right. So, Councilor, I know who you are, but for our viewers, can you just reintroduce yourself?
I am Councilor Angelita Morillo, or Angelita Morillo. I represent District 3, which is inner southeast Portland and a piece of northeast.
Can I just get your quick thoughts on all the protests and the deployment of gas against protesters this weekend? There's children, there's elderly.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching a live stream footage of the process. I watched a lot of videos that people sent to me afterwards and a lot of the media coverage as well. And I think it was absolutely horrific what happened. It was clear we had a very large, peaceful demonstration. It was union members with their families. There were children there. People were simply walking by the ICE facility and they got tear gassed pretty excessively from what I saw. So it was absolutely horrific. And I think that we need to do everything we can to ensure that ICE is not doing mass crowd control, because that is not their jurisdiction.
And I want to ask you about your ordinance, which was passed to basically charge a fee to detention facilities so that they can cover costs associated with these sorts of events. Mm-hmm. How do the events of this past weekend impact any action you might take through the ordinance, or does it even?
Well, I think that the ordinance was in place a while ago. We were hoping that the executive side was going to take the time to really make sure that it was ready to go once the ordinance passed, but they are in the rulemaking process. So the executive branch, the mayor's team, the deputy city administrators, we need them to start the rulemaking process urgently and to have that ready to go so that the fines can be put in place, because this should have been done a long time ago. We as councilors, me and Councilor Green, sent out a letter to Mayor Wilson. We publicly posted it asking the executive branch to move with urgency on this issue, because we know it's a matter of public urgency, and he has been publicly responsive to that now. It sounds like they are ready to move on that and make sure that that happens. But we also have existing nuisance code that does not need rulemaking, that already exists, and we expect that the executive will use all of the powers that they have under that nuisance code to enforce the laws.
So when it comes to the detention fee costs, is that, or rather fine, is that a fixed cost, or because of what happened last week, would you guys have the authority to then also fine them for that?
It would apply, the nuisance aspect of the detention facility fee applies now. Some of the rulemaking for other parts of it will apply later. But we need the executive to make those rules. They asked us to leave that part fairly broad so that they could make it enforceable for the executive.
So the mayor has to sort of dot his T's and cross his I's. Oops, that's not the way you say it. So the mayor has to basically decide whether to enforce the nuisance part. Is that what's happening?
The bureaus right now are in the rulemaking process. He is the executive, so he gets to tell them how urgently to move on it. We had been working on the policy for months prior, so they were fully aware that this was something that was coming up. And there was a 30-day rule once the ordinance was passed for how long they had to make that rulemaking process happen. It's going a lot slower than we had hoped as councilors, but we need the executive to step up and do their part so that we can start that enforcement process.
Gotcha. So what's the soonest do you estimate that that rulemaking process will be done and now you guys can actually go after ICE?
Well, again, the nuisance aspect applies right now, and we have existing nuisance code. So the executive can start enforcing that right now. As far as this ordinance and the further expansion of it, that is going to be a great question for the mayor. We will continue to push him for those specifics. And I think that as councilors, we are asking for specifics on a lot of these issues, right? We are hearing mass public outrage about the McAdam ICE facility permit. We as councilors need to be getting regular, transparent updates at city council meetings about where things are at with that process. This is a matter of public interest, and I expect that every level of government, from Congress to your local school board, is going to use whatever powers we have to make that happen. I will also say my office has been working in coordination with the county. They, as the public health agency, are very interested in doing air quality monitoring near the McAdam ICE facility, and they have monitors that are ready to go. My office connected the executive branch with those folks at the county that were interested in doing that, and we have not seen movement on that. So we are hoping that the events of this weekend, despite how terrible they were, will result in something positive, which is more urgency from the executive to actually get moving on some of these issues.
If I may ask you about the nuisance part, so does that mean right now people can complain about the facility being a nuisance and then action has to be taken, or is that solely the executive, in this case Mayor Wilson? decide?
Yeah, I think that for folks who faced very specific harm, there's regular tear gas, but there's some cases that are more affirmative, like if it was your child or if you were a disabled person that got tear gassed, there is a place to file complaints. I don't have the link off the top of my head, but it's on the permitting department site, I believe. We also saw that the Attorney General at the state level is taking in complaints on that if their civil rights are violated, and the ACLU of Oregon is looking into different cases that came up because, like I said, it was a lot of people who were peacefully demonstrating and using their First Amendment rights, and they were all tear gassed extremely excessively from what I saw.
Have y'all been receiving complaints yet?
The permitting department has been, I believe, taking intakes of a lot of the complaints that are coming in, but that's something that we as councilors have requested, and we requested that in our letter as well, me and Councilor Green, for regular updates to council, because this has been sort of kept in the permitting department and on the executive side, and we aren't getting those regular updates, and that has to change.
So when let's say somebody files a complaint, what happens next?
A complaint in general, or with regards to the McAdam building?
With the regard to McAdam, but and the nuisance part, if they go to the budget or the permitting website and they file the complaint, what are the next steps for them?
Well, that's part of what we're encouraging the executive to clarify and to work with us to do, right? I think that whenever someone files a complaint, something has to be done with it and it has to go somewhere. In my opinion, I think that those complaints need to be used to start building up a case about the permitting aspect of the McAdam building. And we also need our local police to be doing their part. So if they're going to be down at the McAdam building, they could be helping us gather evidence about the excessive use of force from the federal agents. They could be helping gather evidence about the types of tear gas that are used. Why do I have civilians and Portlanders bringing me tear gas canisters that I can look at to figure out what type of chemical munitions they're using against our own people, right? We have paid staff that are down there. We need them to do their part in that data gathering so that when the decision comes back to full council, we can make as informed of a decision as possible.
Anything else you'd like to add, Councilor?
I just really have to say that there is a role for everybody to play, whether you're in government or you are a regular person out on the streets. From Congress, we need them to defund ICE completely. At the city council level, we need to use every land use code we have to make sure that the federal agents are addressed. We need our police to do their part to make sure that all law enforcement, including federal law enforcement, are held accountable. We need school board members protecting students who are being kidnapped by ICE. We need the county to be monitoring air quality so we can see if that is impacting our residents. And we need regular people who are standing up in their neighborhoods, who are doing ICE Watch, who are doing Migra Watch, who are taking care of their neighbors, delivering food, making sure that they're okay when they can't go to work. And it's going to take all of us collectively doing this work. And I know that we're going to get through it. Portland is the strongest city with people filled with good hearts. And I know that we're going to make it out. But it's going to take all of us doing our part. And that means that us as a city council, we have a big responsibility in that too.
Thank you so much for your time, Councilor. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Especially I know you're on the go and you've squeezed in time, so we really appreciate it.